Thank you, moderator, and I want to seek the indulgence. I want to seek the indulgence of the Vice President to just fall back on existing protocol. Vice President, former President Ghana, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think this will turn out to be the most important session today. Well, we just heard from the former President of Ghana, and he was able to lay out. Hello, yeah. Yeah, we just heard from the former President of Ghana. I think the paper speaks to the investment framework you are expected to deploy in your state if you want it to really work. At the Nigerian Governors Forum, you have a policy hub responsible for driving a number of things. Of course, we interface on behalf of all the states with the federal government, federal ministries, departments, and agencies. But by and by, it's become very clear to us at the forum that most of these things actually happen at the state level. And that is exactly why I want to start by congratulating the governor, who is part of this panel for this. And Governor, just yesterday, I picked up your inaugural speech, the speech the governor delivered. And I want to quote you out there. You basically said that we are all happy to be here, but the truth is that every single person here is a winner. I promise to be governor to everybody. I mean, so this responsibility of transitioning from being a partisan politician to a governance person is what I find here. A lot of things has happened here. You have all the basic structures in place. There's a very robust strategy, and I think all the speakers here will be able to address this one after the other. To my left is Dr. Jumoke. This would not have been complete without Dr. Jumoke here. I mean, seriously. In Abuja, I work with her closely. She's done a lot for this country. I think the most recent being the laws, the body of laws, I think the omnibus bills that you just submitted to the National Assembly to help impact our investment space. Again, after Jumoke is my boss, the governor of Edo State. I'm happy the governor is here. There's something I think you stand to benefit from the governor of Edo State. Only 2 weeks ago, one of the development partners told me that the governor rejected $20 million investments. I mean, and the implication, I just didn't know why. I met the governor, and he gave me some context to that. The truth is that just as we are attracting investments, we have to be mindful of the kind of investments you attract to the state. And I think the governor will be in a position to discuss that. Well, for investment too, private sector involvement, I think there's no better name, no better person in the country than Laoye. So I want to start with the governor of Edo State. He's done so much. I mean, it's pedigrees out there, it's track record, it's unbeatable. I mean, it chairs a number of the committees at the subnational level at a forum. And I think for starters, he will be able to drive home why we think that collaborating for growth
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, Excellency the Vice President, welcome. Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me start first by congratulating my brother and friend, His Excellency the Governor of Nasarawa State, Engineer Sule. We've come a long way, and both of us, as you can tell, have many things in common. When we met many, many years ago, neither of us ever imagined we'll be in politics, not to talk about being governors of states. So we share so many things in common. And I want to remark here that we will not have been here today for this event, but for the doggedness and the belief of somebody in this room. The former governor of this state, His Excellency Al Makura. He deserves a round of applause. because I was very closely involved with the nomination process while I was in the other party, and I knew the kind of support he gave to my friend, Engineer Sule, and that is largely responsible for why we're here today. Your Excellencies, I believe, haven't heard the former president of Ghana. One thing came out clear, that at the end of the day for Africa, the development trajectory, the development process is almost template. There are certain things you must do for you to develop, either as a country or as a state. And as you can see from what has been happening since His Excellency Governor Sule took over in Nasarawa, he's focused on the issues that are core and germane to engendering development. For us in Edo, just like for you in Nasarawa, we know that the biggest and most important resource we have as a state is our people. And that resource is so critical today because almost 70% of that population, the demographics of our population, of our people, is skewed towards young people, the young people. And therefore, if you don't invest in them, if you don't invest in people, then what is the whole purpose of infrastructure? What is the whole purpose of our existence? You are not likely to get the kind of quality of growth if we don't invest in our people, which means investing in education. So for us in Edo, we said clearly, if we needed to focus on one thing, that will be education. And that became our priority. And not just education, it's the quality of education, because schooling is different. Education or schooling is one thing, learning is another. So for us in Edo, it was how do we ensure that children go to school? Yes, we have the lowest out-of-school population. So it's not an issue of going to school, it's an issue of how to get these children to learn when they're in school. As you know, Africa and Nigeria suffers from what you call learning poverty, where almost 70% of children under the age of 10 years cannot read a simple sentence or do their sums. So for us, ensuring that children go to school and learn was key. And the simple solution for us was investing in teachers, prioritizing teachers, and making sure that the teachers are equipped to pass on knowledge to the children. And this is not rocket science, because 4 years after, what have we achieved? Today, we have almost 300,000 children in our public primary schools between primary 1 and primary 6. They are now learning or reading at 70% of the rate of their colleagues in Europe or Asia. In terms of numeracy skills, they are 65% at the level of their colleagues or peers in developing countries, developed countries. So the point for us is that in all we do, the first priority should be our people, making sure that we retool our educational system, making sure that the foundation for education is laid, because it's on this foundation we're going to build everything else. Because you're not going to be able to get the health workers, the engineers to build your roads, even the politicians to think straight to develop your country can't be obtained if you do not have prioritize education and make sure these people learn the right things.
Yeah, thank you, Excellency. Yeah, thank you, Excellency. Young people, and quality education. I think those are the points I got from that. Pretty important. And I need to also state that at the forum level, we equally work with ourselves. I mean, what my primary responsibility is harvesting best practices. And I think one place you'll find that will be in the department of Dr. Jumoke. You've done a lot in terms of putting best practices together. And
thank you very much, DG. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, the federal government has paid particular attention since 2015 to the ease of doing business, to making sure that the business climate is conducive for small and medium-sized enterprises to thrive. So the PEBEC was inaugurated in 2016 and is chaired by His Excellency the Vice President. And it has a number of ministers on the council. But what became apparent very quickly was the need to partner with the NEC at the subnational level to make sure that ease of doing business interventions were cascaded, because the economy is everywhere. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Because the economy. Yes? Hello? Hello? Yes. Because the economy is one economy, and every business is domiciled at a subnational level. So the NEC and the PEBEC quickly collaborated since 2017 to replicate the PEBEC model at every state level and the FCT. And this has been done very successfully. Almost every state now has an Ease of Doing Business Council. Nasarawa State is perhaps the only state that's privileged to have His Excellency the Governor as the chair of the council. His Excellency the Vice President inaugurated that council, so he chairs it himself. And on the back of that was very quickly the establishment of the Nasarawa Development Agency. What the Investment Development Agency has done, you heard Stella earlier on, there's an Ease of Doing Business focal point. The CEO represents the state, even at the subnational level, at the technical working group. And the state has been quite responsive in propagating the information, because you asked about peer learning. So for instance, in the Ease of Doing Business report that the PEBEC put together on all the states and the FCT, in there was information from stakeholders that they weren't finding taxation easy. There wasn't enough clarity in paying taxes in Nasarawa State. And the state responded very quickly with a harmonization of tax laws in 2020. And also, there was feedback about the high cost of transportation at that time in 2019, and the state has responded by dedicating about 5% of GDP to infrastructure. So these are the linkages between feedback from the private sector and tangible strategic steps by state governments. And those are just two examples that I'll give that the Nasarawa state government has specifically done in a response to direct feedback from the private sector. I think I'll stop here. I think Nasarawa State deserves a round of applause for that.
I sincerely appreciate your management of time. Yeah. The first executive governor of the state told us that the state started as a rural state in 1999. I mean, it was impossible to even, the IGR was less than ₦1 million. And we probably forgot too that apart from being the first governor here, he was also the first chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Did a lot in setting all this together. I mean, that's and if we, from the chair of the Investment Advisory Council, this is today a deal state. A deal state. That was how I described the state. And then if you listen to the biggest bullish investor in Africa, that's Alhaji Aliko Dangote, he basically said that the state has got right now all the requirements ready for investment and that it was prepared to put some more money here. You can't get a better test. You can't. You can't. If you need reference in any part of the world, that's a statement from Aliko, and I think you can take that to the bank. Right now, the governor himself, during his presentation, said he was basically waiting for the resolutions from this session, from this whole event, for implementation. That is a governor that has been ready to be governor. He prepared, he just didn't assume office as governor. It's very clear. Like I said, I read his inaugural speech last night, again, a second time, and I was simply very happy. I don't know whether it's because of your background as an engineer. There are 4 engineers who are governors within the Nigerian Governors Forum, and they are all doing excellently well. Excellently well. The Borno State governor is an engineer. The Ebonyi State governor is an engineer. And I think we have one more engineer out there. There are 4 of them. 4 engineers. They are all doing excellently well. We're extremely very proud of you, Governor. I mean, so while preparing, so it would be good to find out what your mindset was like. I mean, you started from the private sector, and I know when you talk of private sector, the thinking is profit maximization. I mean, moving from the private sector to the public sector is usually a huge one. That is service. Making yourself available, you want to serve. Public good. I mean, and you want to be governor to everybody like you promised in your inaugural speech. We want to know how prepared, what are the instruments in place today, and how you have leveraged Abuja to make some of these things happen. Thank you, Excellency Engineer.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, Your Excellencies, my dear brother, the former President of Ghana, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think first and foremost, let me pick up from where my brother and actually my senior colleague, the governor of Edo, has mentioned. Based on all the speeches that have been there and also on the speech delivered by the former president of Ghana, we came in with a notion that we have to know where we are going, and that's where the document, Nasarawa Economic Development Strategy came about. Because if you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. So that's the reason why we decided to design exactly our vision and our belief that government has no business being in business. Government has more business in ensuring that we provide the infrastructure and the environment to be able to do that. I think my brother, the governor of Edo, mentioned something, that the number one resource of the people and the benefit of the people are actually the people, of every state is the people. In Nasarawa State, we are endowed with very, very good people. We are very lucky that we have people who can learn. We are very lucky with all the institutions that are there for investment. As a matter of fact, when I went out there to receive Alhaji Aliko Dangote coming in, and I told him, so it's not just the people, but the commitment of the people. So when I went out to receive him, and I said it was Senator Abdullahi that was there. He said, virtual? I said, no, in person. He said, no way. I said, yes way. When we go in there, you will see him. That is the commitment that we are talking about from people. Perhaps Abdullahi is the busiest person that you can find today with the number of people that are buying phones per second. Not only for a president, but for all the other positions. Yet, he will have time to come here and sit for several hours because of his belief in the nation, belief in Nasarawa State, and belief in the progress of the state. And that is enough. And the same thing actually goes with my predecessor, Senator Tanko Almakura, for all he has done. And of course, I will never forget all the various people, including my boss, Aliko Dangote, and the 14th Emir of Kano, who are all here. So we are forever grateful. I think the bottom line, sir, is we design what we want. We know exactly what it is. We know the kind of people we have. And we know we have the great potentials in Nasarawa State. That's why we continue to focus in the areas of our competitive advantage. Agriculture, agriculture, agriculture. Mining is second. Agriculture is not only the biggest employer of labor, it's actually the low-hanging fruits for us. We have the land. We have the water. River Benue has been very kind to us in Nasarawa State. And those are the things that we pick. So we pick our competitive advantages. Education-wise, we prepare our people. I have my brother, the Vice President of Naseni, who is here, actually, who have all the support, from the technical side. So we have our other brother, Lazarus Ambazu, doctor, who is also heading the infrastructure Development Agency. So these are all the things where we use our competitive advantage in order for us to get to where we are. And I think we have the people who are willing, and we have the people, who are determined to make Nasarawa State great. And that is where we are going. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, the governor of the state. When the former president of Ghana addressed us, he said, he emphasized prioritization, talked about rural, urban migration, access to education at the very basic level. I mean, I think that's what is happening in Edo State. I mean, it's done extremely well with Edo Best. He talked about, he addressed medical tourism. There were a number of things that were done. I mean, and of course, private sector involvement. And today, I think one of the most qualified people to touch on this in our country today is my brother, Mr. Laoye, please. CEO, NESG. Thank you.
Excellency the Vice. Thanks, sir. Excellency the Vice President, Excellency the former President of Ghana, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to speak to the topic, how do we ensure collaboration within the sub-region? Generally, private sector people want to invest. I always tell people the private sector is not afraid of risk. What the private sector is afraid and they cannot handle is uncertainty. And therefore, what are the things we think the subnationals should do together and collaborate? First and foremost, they need to work on data. Data and evidence should guide whatever it is they are doing. So I need to know, I commend what Nasarawa is doing. I was expecting the governor of Kaduna to be here, and he was going to share his experience when he was dealing with the out-of-school children. We had done some work with them. You realize that he looked at only Kaduna. Maybe he projected that other states will come without looking at all the states around. Maybe if they had pulled resources together the more, they will have been able to achieve part of the problems, more result than now. So we need to pay attention to data and collaboration. Data is it. Evidence we guided. The second thing I think we need to do in order to look at policy imperatives that is important is that, I've seen Nigeria, when Nigeria was just 4 regions, we went to 12 states, 36 states, and each time you see states, people divided into states, you begin to wonder whether they were together before or not. And a good example was a university in Ladoke, Akitola University, used to be owned by both Oyo and Osun State. After the states was divided into two, that state had tremendous problem until one of the states took it over. Now, what am I trying to say? You see, unless we know that as a state, we cannot survive without collaborating with our neighboring states, we're going to have a problem. So even how do we work on building access road? Because private sector will thrive where we have scale. There's a beauty in scale. So, and President of Dangote is here, but he's working in other neighboring states. How do we ensure that we collaborate and make it easy for government to move from, to private sector, to move from one state to the other? Our people, they're going to migrate from one place to the other. So we need to have a mindset orientation that allow us to be able to say, our brothers are brothers. And one last thing I want to talk about is we need to decide whether it's market or not. It's imperative. Today, we're dealing with fuel problem. If you ask the moment people, they will say the landing price of fuel is about 500 naira, for instance. We're selling at 169, right? 167. So we don't have money. Now, market, when you bring these investors into place and they put long-term funding into your environment, their expectation is that they can get their return back. But when we begin to allow politics, influence, and we don't allow the market structures to work, we have a problem. So state governments need to collaborate more and bring the issues to fore. Thank you.
So thank you. Sorry about that. We are pressed for time. I mean, we're keeping the vice president sitting there. Now, two things I want to emphasize. And going back to the speech by the former president of Ghana, I just told the governor that we plan to distribute that speech to all the 36 governors in the country. I think that would help guide a number of things. The former president talked about power as a fundamental issue, and that it's very important that is addressed. He also mentioned something else. He talked about MDG and then later SDG targets. And I think all governors, all states must put that at the back of our minds in putting this forward. And finally, he talked about the need to establish technical universities or colleges. I mean, it's at the heart of a number of things we are trying to do here. I want to call on the governor of Edo State. 1 second. You've not told us why you rejected $20 million. And then, Jumoke, just a second, because the VP has to catch another assignment.
Thank you. Why did I reject $20 million? You have to know you have to understand your priorities. We were offered money in dollars to give out for empowerment. I am saying, wait a minute, why would I give out dollars as empowerment money? And these dollars will go into my books as loans. It didn't make sense. They weren't offering me $20 million to build a power plant or to build a water facility. It was for empowerment. Clearly, that is not the kind of money a state should take for its development. So we rejected it. But I think for me, the point I want to make, the final point, is that just looking at the handbook for this summit, I found that almost all the sponsors, who I presume are investors in Nasarawa, are also doing business in Edo. For me, that was quite fulfilling. It says something that the governor of Nasarawa State is doing something right to attract these high-quality investors. So we are shifting from where we're talking about attracting to now competing for investors, because these investors have a certain mindset. And yes, it's good competition amongst states. For us in Edo, we encourage such competition, and we'll continue to share information amongst ourselves. And finally, I want to thank the governor for inviting me here to this session, and to tell you that we will always be grateful for some of the learnings we got from you, because it's not in one way. Nasarawa State was one of the first states to implement GIS. And when we were implementing our own GIS in Edo, we had to come here to understudy what they did. So today, we now issue CFOs within 60 days of application. Thank you. And congratulations again.
Thank you. Your Excellency, my last charge will probably be about institutionalization of the reforms and making sure that the rigor of the reforms go into the public and civil service. The Executive Order 1 of the federal government of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has been quite effective. We've been tracking it, and that's one thing that states can also adopt. Kwara State is the first and only state that has done that. So the deepening of it to make sure that it's not just a one-off, and we continue to work at collaboratively and progressively making Nasarawa an easier place to do business. Thank you.
Your Excellency, please, 1 minute.
Mine is actually to thank all of you, thank especially all the experiences we continue to hear from you. We are forever grateful for all this, and we call on all the investors, please come and invest in Nasarawa State, the new destination for investment in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Vice President, this brings to the end of the session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.